Yes, creativity and business go hand in hand. Hear from Kimberly Camp, who served for 25 years as a museum CEO, leading the Barnes Foundation, the Charles Wright Museum, and the Smithsonian Experimental Gallery. Tune in tonight to hear from our special guest, thriving painter, artist, gallerist, and arts advocate, Kimberly Camp, on her journey appreciating, making, and celebrating creativity while managing her own business and gallery for over 9 years. Yes, 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 indeed.
Welcome to Entrepreneurship is a Marathon, a podcast about how you can grow a profit-producing, purpose-driven business without burnout. We don't need more people starting businesses. We need more people continuing. Each week, we'll deliver the latest and greatest tips, tricks, and strategies for you to revive, grow, and scale your business. Now, here's your host, consultant, professor, and the business defibrillator, Vanessa Zammi.
Hello, hello. We are joined with arts advocate and premier artist Kimberly Camp. So just a little side note. So today in class, right, so I'm a professor of entrepreneurship. I teach an entrepreneurship course for a school of business. And one of today's takeaways that I share with my class was essentially ultimately the importance of resourcefulness when it comes to business ownership and entrepreneurship. And resourcefulness pretty much comes down to creativity, right? There's some creativity and artistry when you are running your business, even if you're not necessarily an artist. Maybe you're not a singer, you're not a doll maker like Kimberly here. But the act of running a business for 9 years, as Kimberly has had with hers after a stunning career, serving as a CEO for several arts organizations, shows us and she knows that creativity is crucial. So on this episode here this evening with Kimberly Camp, we will be discussing more on how she implements and embraces creativity in her business as an artist, and then also how you can as well as a business owner in general. I know some of you are likely new to the show. Yes, yes, yes. As always, in every episode, I always touch on what has been your win of the week. What has been your win of the week? Now it's only Tuesday night when we actually go live, but that's okay. A week is 7 days. So during the last 7 days, what has been your win of the week? And if you are watching us via the replay, what has been the win of the week from the last 7 days? If you're listening to us on the podcast of the last 7 days, what has been your win of the week, right? What is something that you're proud of, celebrating? It doesn't have to be business related either. It could be a personal win. It could be a milestone with your family, with yourself, right? The holidays are coming up. Maybe Halloween just passed, right? What has been your win of the week? Taking the moment to really celebrate and be grateful, because you know what, as we know, business ownership is not the easiest thing in the world. It is a marathon, hence the title of my show, right? But ultimately, there are some highs on that roller coaster. There are some ways that you can still celebrate. So what has been your win of the week? Type it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, scroll to the bottom, hit the red subscribe button, type in the comments. If you're watching on LinkedIn, type it in the right side in the comment section. What has been your win of the week? So let's start with our guest, Kimberly. What's been your win of the last 7 days?
You know, that my best win is that I got fabulous news last week. I've been working with a gallery in North Jersey called Philosophy, which uses art and philosophy as a way to enrich people's lives. They submitted a proposal to the Prism Art Fair, which goes on in Miami as part of Art Basel, and the proposal was accepted.
Ooh.
So I'll be doing a solo show during Prism. I'm very excited.
Fantastic. Yay. Y'all, she is still thriving as an artist. Don't you just love it when people just keep on winning in business, right? And that's why we ask you the question. Let's celebrate your win with you here on Entrepreneurship is a Marathon. Yes. So my win of the week has been a pretty simple win, I guess. It's not really a simple win, but essentially, yeah, participating in a business development training. Always stay learning in entrepreneurship and business, folks. Okay. So in a business development training, I'm getting certified in a profile system to further accelerate my clients' growth and path. And this training, we're only on day 2 of the training. And I've already had so many insights into just some key decisions for Q4 for the business. And I'm even it just relates even beyond business, including abundance, money, mindset, relationships. It's just the whole thing. I'm just grateful for this training. Okay. I wrote a lovely reflection entry in my journal. So that's been my win of the week, is the aha moment that I had per this training and per some other connections that the mind went through. So what has been your win of the week? It could be personal. It could be business. It could be the candy you ate during Halloween. What has been your win of the week? So About our guest, who is Kimberly Camp, in a little bit more detail, right? Well, Kimberly Camp's painting and dolls have appeared in over 100 solo and group exhibitions, and as you see here, continuing to appear in more group exhibitions. She's a recipient of 2 NEA fellowships and the Kellogg National Leadership Program Fellowship. Kimberly has been featured in Essence, Nouvel Objet, FiberArts, National Geographic World, the Village Voice, and the Smithsonian. Camp received the 2020 Award of Excellence Art Makes Us Human Award from the American Craft Council and the Gold Medal Best of Show at the 2021 Peters Valley Craft Fair. And while she was doing all this stuff, right, she was also working with government officials and leaders in the area of branding and repositioning arts organizations, right, so that they can receive more increased support and engagement, including helping to raise over $70 million and spearheading the resurrection of the Barnes Foundation and the Charles Wright Museum in Detroit. Kimberly Camp is a visual artist with over 50 years of exhibition experience. Camp brings a wealth of diverse experience to bear and a reputation of results-driven planning. We are so excited to have her here with us. Yay! So, Kimberly, what got you started in art? Let's start.
It actually is it's a family affair, I should say. All of my uncles, my parents are all working artists, my cousins, and so it's just something that we all did. And when I was my world when I was a child, I grew up in downtown Camden over my dad's office, and directly across the street from me was an art supply store. My grade school was a half a block down on one side, and there was a Carnegie Library on the other corner. So it was the perfect environment to nurture a young artist, and I took advantage of all of that.
Love it. Love it. Resourcefulness, folks. Resourcefulness. There it is. Now, let us know, do you believe that creativity and learning is like really matters, right? Like for those who aren't artists, right? For those who don't, sing occasionally as you do, just randomly, or make art and dolls. Just overall, why do you think, or even specifically, what are some key aspects do you think creativity and learning, supports us as humans and as business owners?
The best way to develop critical problem solving skills is really to do what some people call systems thinking. And that is to sort of look at one image, one object, one activity, and thoroughly analyze all of the parts of it so that you come to this better understanding of what is involved and what is engaged. So visual artists in general, use critical thinking skills in the creation of work, right? We look at a still life or a landscape or a family photograph or whatever we're working on. And we're not only looking at the image itself, but we're looking at the relationship of one object to the other. We're looking at the way that shadows fall. We're looking at where light falls in. All of those things go into creating art. And I often tell people, if you want to know who the artist is, if you're, 6 people going down the highway, the artist in the car says, did somebody see that orange rabbit over there under that purple barn who was playing a violin? And everybody's like, what barn? So it heightens your ability to perceive. And that is to see and then put meaning to what it is that you see. Those skills are critical, whatever kind of field that you're in, whether it is giving you a better ability to see your customers and understand what it is they really want, to negotiate effectively when you're trying to cut that great deal, to get out of a difficult spot by sort of analyzing what the situation is and thinking creatively about what your avenues might be for salvaging the situation.
I love it. I love it. It's funny that you mentioned that. So, well, I don't consider myself, I'm definitely not an artist, consider myself to be more of an art appreciator, versus an artist myself. But in terms of, like you mentioned, systems and processes, and that's pretty much my strength and skill set when it comes to problem solving, is being able to really help my clients see their, like, all the different components and how they can come together in a way, like breaking it all apart and how they can come together, and doing that through systems and processes, and using that skill. I did a whole engineering degree in university, but the way I describe the degree to people is that it was applying engineering thinking to business problems, right? And they say engineering thinking is what? Engineering thinking is the whole idea of systems and processes and going through a hypothesis and all that sort of jazz, right? And look, we just heard from an artist that that's the same thing that artists do. Look at that, folks. It's all connected.
I think with the arts, though, and I'll say this, that engineering is specific to a particular component, right? So the artist has to even broaden that kind of thinking. I moved back to the East Coast from Eastern Washington State, and I lived in a city that bragged having the highest per capita number of engineers in the country. It was a Manhattan Project secret city, now the largest Superfund site cleanup. And so just about everybody there was a specialist in their field, but they weren't able to look more broadly at other areas. I literally had a board member one time ask me how I knew what I knew. And what after about 20 minutes of trying to figure out exactly what he was asking me, he wanted to know how I could do what I did without a book. And so, and he's like, well, we need a diagram. And I think that's the difference between the sort of engineering approach to it and the creative approach to it. And that is to come up with those solutions on your feet. Why is that important? Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's one of my favorite scientists, one time in an interview said that you can give students every book that you want. You can teach them in class. You can draw things on the blackboard. You can show them films. Nothing compares to the real personal experience of, and Chicago, one of the museums has a replica of a live coal mine in the basement. When students go down there, they know what a coal mine is. They remember everything. That's the power of combining those visual clues in the situation. And it's why we know from research that people believe museums more than they believe books, than they believe teachers. And what are museums? They're places that hold the evidence of our civilization. So being able to analyze those things and look at, how does that relate to me? How does it relate to people that I know? What did I see that I didn't see? When you get back, it's sort of, what did I see there that looks like something that's in my home? All of that are the components of creativity.
I love that. I love that. We are just getting started here with Kimberly Camp. We'll be right back after this short break.
If you're a storefront business owner, salon owner, or brick and mortar shop owner, including a cafe, home decor, furniture, or clothing boutique, then listen up. We have some incredible discounted workshops at vzammy.com for our podcast listeners to help you increase your sales by 50%. If you're looking for more tips on reviving your business, make sure to visit our website, vzammy.com. That's vzamy.com. To register for our upcoming business growth workshop on staff management, financial management, and time management. It's your time to revive, grow, and scale your shop so you can go on that vacation and still have your shop thriving. Visit vzammy.com. That's V for Vanessa, Z for zebra, A for animal, M for money, Y as in yes.com. Visit vzammy.com for more details.
And we're back with Kimberly Camp, yes, and whose cat made an appearance. But we're back with Kimberly Camp, thriving artist, gallerist, arts advocate for over 50 years. And we're just having a conversation around engineering thinking, artistry, problem solving, business ownership. If you missed that, rewind, right? Listen to it again. Some really great insights there. And from what you've shared, Kimberly, what would you say, why is supporting living artists and collecting, original art central, would you say, to someone's quality of life? I know that one of my sort of retirement goals is to have a townhome in New York, and I'm just sitting on arts boards and I'm just collecting the artwork and ooh la la. But that's just me. But in terms of, in your opinion, Kimberly, why would you say supporting living artists and collecting original art are central to quality?
What was really interesting during the shutdown, it was traumatic for everybody. I was literally on the phone basically saying, please hold the line. I have 2 phone calls ahead of you. Because people were at home realizing that the starkness of their environment wasn't enough to make them really feel at home, to keep them interested, to keep them intellectually engaged. And people were calling me literally from all over the country saying, I was in your gallery 2 years ago and I saw XYZ. Do you still have it? can you get me, such and so and so.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one gentleman came by, had a large Buddha, and it was from Indonesia, and he called me from the sidewalk. He's like, I need this Buddha. It was like 5 feet long. It was huge. Having art in your environment creates the kind of visual stimulation and brain activity that is really important. Some of your viewers may know of the Barnes Foundation. It is one of the top 10 art collections in the world. Albert Barnes was a scientist, physician who believed that art could build a better democracy. And one of the things he talked about was how eye movement was directly related to brain development. And at that time, 100 years ago, because they had their 100-year anniversary, I think on 1925, a couple years coming up. But he said he didn't know how to prove it, but he knew that there was a relationship. Well, we now know that there is definitely a relationship. And we know that those observation skills really do help us to think more clearly. And so having original art around your home is a really wonderful way to do that. And I'll say this to people that are tuning in. It is so easy to buy original work from working artists. You don't need to go buy prints that are signed and numbered that are not hand pulled. What do I mean by that? There are printing techniques where the artist actually has to use their hands, their bodies, their decision making to create each one of those prints in an edition. And then there are those that are produced mechanically, either by offset printing or giclée. A lot of people talk about giclée. They're fine, but they're only worth the paper that they're printed on. And so if you want to have an image that is really going to last, it's going to have that meaning, I always encourage people to try a buy from artists. As an African-American artist, the other challenge is the generation before me, my parents' generation. Museums were segregated. And so we had not built in the behavior in our community to use museums as part of our social life, as part of our intellectual development, because it was like swimming in our community, right? We had access to music. We had access, everybody had a radio. People knew musicians who played. We had access to dance. We had access to spoken word, written word. But the arts seemed to be sort of on a different plane. And part of that is the behavior of my colleagues in the field, unfortunately, that create environments that tend to not be as welcoming for everyone as they could be. And so it is really, so African Americans are the lowest number of attendees in museums. We're the lowest number of people who participate and support the artists. And there has yet to be an opportunity that I've talked to a young artist, and the first thing they say is, I want my people to have my work, to buy my work, to have that conversation with me. And I usually tell them to forget it because it's just not going to happen. It's
Oh, why
it's sad.
so? You don't
It's
believe
sad,
it's
but
going to happen?
true. Yeah.
Oh.
A lot of that also has to do with the economics of the art world. And there is the view that making it in the arts means that your artwork is expensive and only purchased by very wealthy people. That is one way. It was never the way for me. I always wanted everyday working class people to be able to buy my work. And so the scale of it, I made things that were smaller. The prices were more in line with something that someone could afford. I offer a free layaway for people and they want to buy things. And then I also make dolls, which are a whole other kind of form, and with the same philosophy, though, of being able to provide someone with something that's exciting, interesting, stimulating, will hold its value, will gain in value as time goes on, and that's affordable. And so it's really critical that we, think about those concepts. So my work, years ago, and I've been doing this for half a century. Years ago, I would do very large pieces. I did murals and all of those kinds of things. And then I started making things smaller so that someone could be able to actually hang it in their home. Artists that make paintings that are 10 foot by 30 foot are not painting for you to put that in your living room.
Yeah. And you had just mentioned, it's sort of like during the pandemic, how people were, they realized that they wanted to make their home more welcoming, inviting for themselves. And so being able to ensure it wasn't just wealthy people saying that, right? It was people from all different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Wanting to, have more artwork, more welcoming artwork that connected to them that they could connect to while they were inside, like it can
That's
be,
right.
kind of bland looking at 4 white walls, so,
Yeah,
or
even it was
beige walls or blue
interesting
walls, whatever color
as the
walls, right?
school
And
started
so,
opening back up,
yeah.
because I also have artifacts and
Mm,
collectibles. I have a lot of my gallery is non-traditional, so I have handmade work you can buy for $3. I have handmade pieces that cost you $10,000. They're all displayed in the same environment. Somebody comes and buys something, I take it down off the wall, wrap it up, and I put something else up. But it was interesting as the schools started reopening, I would have runs on Egyptian work that I had in the gallery. I have a supplier, an importer, who sends in things from Kairos. There's statues made of stone of the Egyptian gods and entities, and so I would have these run-on statues and realize that the teachers were doing, the Egypt unit that week, and so parents would bring their kids in and basically set up for them in their homes a little mini museum of things, artifacts that were real, genuine, that there's kids could have. And so, there's all of these kinds of roles that the arts play because, it's a form of communication. Every time an artist makes something, it's because they have something to say.
yeah. And I know that we're about wrapping up time here, but I know that you recently went through a brain scare of your own. We mentioned the brain a little bit here this evening. And I know you had shared with me that like there was an artistry. He kind of joked a little bit like there was an artistry to the brain injury. But I'm curious, how did the arts essentially, or that creativity kind of get you through that, or did it at all, ultimately? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's the first thing I did when I came home. It was one of the few things that I could do, because after surgery, it was a little, I wasn't allowed to bend over. I wasn't allowed to sneeze with my mouth
Oh, and
closed.
for people's reference, right, we're referring to essentially there was a hole in her brain and there was fluid leaking out, and then they had to cut her brain up so
Yeah,
that they can close that fluid. And yes, so that was a surgery that she
yeah,
went through.
it was it was really kind of. I mean, the whole experience was amazing, and but so they did have to cut a hole in my skull to fix the hole. So um, I wasn't allowed to do anything, and the doctor said, we want you to keep your pressure as low as possible so the patch holds because we don't want to do this again. That's great incentive. And so what I could do was sit at my easel and work. And I had a show coming up, which is up now at Camden Stedman Gallery at Rutgers, an exhibition called Portraits of Camden. And there are 6 artists in the show. My work, as well as the work of 5 other artists. One of them was a teenager when I first met him. And, we all hear this, oh, my cousin's an artist. I'm like, yeah, okay. And so my boyfriend brought his cousin in and I looked at his work. I was like, yes, you are an artist. And it's so nice that he's in this exhibition with me. It's really great. So I was getting ready for the show and I wanted to do a body of new work. And so being able to sit at the easel and paint was really a gift. And that's another one of those sort of gifts that the arts gives, because I could sit there at my leisure and just work. And that's my happy place. When I'm in a space where I'm creating, everything else just washes away. And so it also speaks to that power we were talking about earlier, the power of creativity, because in the process of creating, you set up almost thought experiments. It's really the same process as scientific experimentation and discovery.
Yeah.
You set up problems and solve those problems, or you're working. And so, I live a charmed life. I have to say, this is a wonderful way to make a living. It, of course, is absolutely scary. I tell people that artists live in the space between incredible self-doubt and horrific hubris.
And you know what's funny? Business owners live in that business, any industry lives in that same
right.
space.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
it,
yes,
it
yes.
took I think about 2 years of my being open before I stopped waking up with night terrors of, what, my God, what am I doing here? And I remember going to an event, it was a party at a friend's home, and I was sitting there and I was, musing about things, and a woman started talking and she said she had her own business. And I said, "Oh, so do I." And I asked her what she did, and I think she had a yoga studio or something. And she said, it took about 3 years before I didn't wake up in a panic every morning and realize that it was actually okay. And I was in that space. I was like, I'm so glad you said that, because, I was starting to wonder, am I crazy or not? Right. Um, and what happens after a while is you begin to trust your instincts, begin to
Mm-hmm.
trust your judgment, and plan effectively for when things change. Things always change, right?
Yeah. I think that's where a little bit of that creativity comes in when things do change,
Yeah,
right? Because that's kind of inevitable, whether things you can control or things you can't control, right? Things are
that's
going to
right.
change. And that's that resourcefulness, that's that creativity, right? And coming into
Absolutely.
play. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, something as simple as at one point, a new restaurant opened across the street from me, and they had long lines outside of people waiting for tables. And I noticed that people were standing out on the sidewalk when they actually could be in my gallery. And so I painted the windows bright yellow.
Mm.
People started coming across across the street. It's something just that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, we know that red is a color of attraction. I paint my steps red. I freshen it up every other years, but my steps are red.
Mm.
It's simple things like that that as artists you learn them. But they're really handy in business. Even the idea. And there's a young woman I met a few weeks ago. She has a wonderful dress shop out at the King of Prussia Mall. She's Kenyan, beautiful African fashion. And I told her I didn't want to be too preachy, but maybe I was happy to suggest a few things. And to, for example, not be limited by how you design your displays, your environment
Mm-hmm.
for customers. The more things are visually interesting, the longer people will spend in your space.
Yeah.
So it behooves you to even buy used furniture, old sewing machines, antique desks, little oddities, things like that that are visually stimulating, make people stay in your space longer.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so interesting you bring that up because so one of my clients, she's based out of Michigan. She has a antique shop, all right. And so I remember when I went out to go actually visit her store this past summer, and that was one of the things I was like, okay, how can we make this more visually pleasing, but also at ease for people, right? Like the furniture and materials were already pleasing because she spent
Right.
so much time, like moving things around. It was sort of what are the simple things that we can do. I think a lot of
Yeah.
business owners when they come to me what happens a lot is that they are stuck, right? And they are in this space of like complication, like, and I literally, like people have remarked, they're just like I'll say something to them and I'll say, did that make sense? And they're like, yeah, that was
Right.
so simple. And I was like, sometimes it really just is that simple. Like it's not, paint the, paint the stairs red,
It,
sometimes it can be that simple. Yeah.
yeah, it really is. I mean, one of the things that I learned is, and this, applies more toward retail, but I'm in the gallery all the time. So I see things and I used to get like really panicked because I'm like, oh my God, nobody's going to buy this thing. It's been here for, 2 years. And if I move it from one wall to the other, my regular customers will say, oh, you got something new. This is really great. I'll take that. The visual clues that we use are really, really important. And if you're able to tie those to the emotional reactions of people, then you're able to shift their behavior a little bit while they're in the space.
Yeah.
Artists learn those kinds of things because we need those skills in order to be able to connect with collectors and talk to them about why what we're doing is necessary for them to have in their lives, right? So we'll tell you the story about how it happened. We'll talk about what the process might be. I always encourage people to talk to artists about their process, about what they're trying to do, about how they feel about things. We are very deeply engaged in the world in which we live because we are narrators of our current time in history. And so artists all the time have stories to tell. because we're constantly thinking about these things as we're creating work. When I was making the piece for the Rutgers show, I did a painting of my cousin and I in our ballet tutus from when we were 4.5 years old. We went to the Sidney King School of Ballet, and Lola Falana was actually our student teacher. I still had the tutu, so I hung it up in my studio while I was painting. It brought back so many memories. And, people, when they saw the painting, said, I feel like I'm right there. I feel like I was standing right in that space. Mm-hmm. And, those are the things that whatever kind of business you're in, you want to be able to make that emotional connection with people, because that's the one that brings them back. That's the one that creates a loyal customer base. That's the environment in which people begin to trust you and understand that you're there for their own best interest.
Very well said. And on that note, we are coming up on time, but essentially, Kimberly Camp, let us know how we can reach you. If you've been watching us live via the screen, you'll see her link scrolling through the screen. Gallery Marie, that's Marie, Gallery, GAL1LERIE, gallerymarie.net. Yes, check out the Kimberly's Gallery. And if you're ever on the East Coast, head on over. Yes, head on over and visit Kimberly. Say hey, see the red steps and the yellow windows. They're still up there. And definitely check her out. And thank you, Kimberly, for being with us here this evening and talking through embracing creativity in business and just how people and the importance of it, of arts in general. This is a great conversation. So, and for those of you who I know I've been taking notes, so hopefully you've been taking notes as well too. If you didn't already tell, this show, Entrepreneurship is a Marathon, is not only about a story, but also about lessons and action items that you can use to keep moving forward in your business, in your brick and mortar business of many years. We equip and empower you through education and through the expert advice of not only myself, but also all these expert business owners who are sharing their insights and tidbits. So hopefully you have learned a lot throughout listening to us here this evening or the morning commute or whenever you're listening to us. If you're watching the replay, let us know what you think. Show Kimberly some love. Yes, the reactions down below. If you're watching on Facebook, there's a reaction button at the below, right? Give us a love, give us the care thing, right? If you're watching on LinkedIn, the light bulb, insightful, celebrate, give her applaud, with a clap there, and let us know what you think. If you are watching us on YouTube, give us a like. If you're listening on the podcast, and give us a review. Yes, with that being said, we are so happy to have had Kimberly Camp here talking to us and sharing with us how do you embrace creativity in your business and your life without even having to be really an artist. She is an artist. She connected the points for us here this evening on our show, Entrepreneurship is a Marathon. We have more experts coming to join us over the next couple of weeks. So tune in, stay tuned every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, live here on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and also on the podcast. As we say here, entrepreneurship is a marathon, but it's a marathon that you don't have to run alone. Okay. If you are looking for additional advice and support in your business, remember to check us out and feel free to schedule time with me at power.vzami.com. That link is in your comments as well as on the screen. If you're looking for support on what are those small things that you can do in your business, right? What are those small tweaks that will make a difference in your business? If you're at a place where you are stuck, where you're thinking about, okay, I don't know what to do next. I have a competitor that just opened up across the street and no one's coming in anymore, right? Or you're thinking to yourself, is this the end of my business? Is this the end of my business career? It's been 15 years. Maybe it's the time for me to go. I'm here to tell you it's not time for you to go. So let's connect about it. power.vzami.com. With that being said, entrepreneurship is a marathon. A marathon you don't have to run alone. Chat with you next week.
Thanks for joining us this week on Entrepreneurship is a Marathon. If you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or Spotify, or if you'd simply tell a friend about this episode. And if you are looking for more tips on reviving your business, make sure to visit our website, vzami.com. That's vzamy.com. To register for our upcoming business growth workshop on staff management, financial management, and time management. It's your time to revive, grow, and scale. Visit vzami.com. That's V for Vanessa, Z for Zebra, A for animal, M as in money, Y as in yes.com. Visit vzammy.com for more